In 1998, a new TV channel went on the air with the goal of creating family-friendly programming. It would prove to be a huge failure, and less than 10 years later, the channel came dangerously close to being kicked off TV and had to completely restructure in order to survive. This is the story of Pax TV, one of television's biggest failures. Bud Paxson was born in New York in 1935. He began his media career by purchasing a low-powered radio station in Newark, New York, followed by WNYP Channel 26 in Jamestown, New York in 1966. Paxton signed a deal to make Channel 26 an affiliate of CTV, the Canadian television network. At that time, there were no CTV affiliates in the United States, so it was expected that this move would be a huge success. However, WNYP became well known for production mishaps. For example, over 2 weeks, the channel showed the same episodes of Aquanauts every single day, and no one at the TV station noticed. Also, the station would sometimes accidentally pick up the signal from a nearby CBS station instead of CTV. On a few occasions, people would turn on WNYP, and while the video feed was fine, the audio playing was from a local radio station instead. Paxson also started airing some Canadian programs from other stations without permission and was sued for copyright infringement. Paxson shut the station down by 1970 and moved on to other projects. He soon purchased an AM radio station in Clearwater, Florida, where he met a salesman who had can openers that he wanted to sell but couldn't afford to purchase any advertisements. Instead of making an ad, Paxson told one of his DJs to talk about the can openers and try to sell them live on air. All the can openers sold within an hour. Selling products live on the air was rare at the time, but Paxson saw that it could be successful. So he and an investor named Roy Spear created a local cable station in Florida called the Home Shopping Club. It would soon go nationwide and be renamed the Home Shopping Network.
Live from Tampa Bay, Florida, it's the Home Shopping Club.
The channel became a billion-dollar business, and the two of them later sold it in 1996 to Barry Diller for $1.3 billion.
How did you come up with this idea? How did it start?
Necessity was the mother of invention, like it is so many times. We had an AM and an FM radio station, and one day we were trying to collect the advertising bill, and the retailer couldn't pay it, and he offered to pay it with 112 electric can openers. Now, how do you meet the payroll tomorrow with 112 electric can openers? Get on the air, and we sold the electric can openers in 5 minutes, and decided that, gee, that was a lot easier than selling advertising.
What kind of dollars are we talking about?
Well, presently, Home Shopping is doing $1 billion a year, and the facility that you're in today was built to do in excess of $10 billion a year. And $10 billion a year exceeds the network income.
And you don't have to buy any programming from anybody.
Isn't that wonderful?
Prior to the sale, Paxson had formed the Paxson Communications Corporation and started buying up local Florida television stations. He also purchased several radio stations and billboards. Paxson didn't hold on to these stations for long. He sold most of them by the mid-90s and used the money plus what he had made from the Home Shopping Network to create Pax TV, a new type of television channel designed to only air family-friendly programming.
You're watching Pax TV, a friend of the family.
Paxson had become a born-again Christian in the mid-80s, and Paxson's vision for the channel reflected his Christian values. It wouldn't just be a cable channel either. Pax would be a national network that would compete with CBS, NBC, and ABC. The original name for the channel was PaxNet, but it was later shortened to just Pax. Paxson named the channel after himself, but also reminded people that Pax was the Latin word for peace, which is why the original logo for the channel featured a dove. Because of the family-friendly nature of the channel, all programming was extensively edited to remove any sexual or violent content, and all strong language was muted. It's important to note that just prior to Pax, there was a TV channel called The Family Channel, which had recently been sold to Fox and would later become Freeform. Many of the programs that aired on the Family Channel went on to air on Pax. Most of the stations that served as the initial affiliates of Pax were stations that Paxton owned or previously owned. Prior to the channel's debut, these stations aired a series of interviews with Paxton about what viewers could expect from the new channel. These interviews were hosted by former Walton star Richard Thomas. Pax debuted on August 31st, 1998 with a fairly full schedule. During weekdays, the network would air mostly reruns of classic shows from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and on weekends they aired a kids' cartoon block in the mornings. Its late-night programming mostly consisted of religious shows and music.
It's the reel-to-reel picture show from Universal Studios, Florida, where today, 2 contestants and their movie star partners play for fabulous prizes and the chance to win the movie vacation of a lifetime.
There were 2 original shows that premiered on Pax. One was a game show called the Reel-to-Reel Picture Show, which featured contestants answering trivia questions about movies and TV shows. This was supposed to be a huge program and was heavily hyped. Pax ordered 200 episodes, but the studio producing it ran into financial trouble and only made 25 episodes. After just 5 weeks, the program was canceled, and many contestants who appeared on the show claimed they never received their prizes.
On this edition of It's a Miracle, while attempting to...
The other new show was a reality series called It's a Miracle, where people who claimed to have experienced miracles were interviewed. Several episodes featured people who claimed their pets saved their lives, but most focused on people who survived tragedies like cancer or natural disasters. During the early days of the network, it also aired reruns of Highway to Heaven, The Hogan Family, Dave's World, Touched by an Angel, and Here's Lucy, which was a follow-up to the more famous I Love Lucy series. One big victory for Pax was the TV show Candid Camera. CBS had revived the series in the mid-90s, but then canceled it. Pax was able to revive the show on its network.
You never know what's going to happen on Supermarket Sweep. Who's got the Glad kitchen bag?
As the years went on, Pax also produced new episodes of the game show Supermarket Sweep, which was my favorite show on the channel, and my family would always watch it around dinner time. Supermarket Sweep originally came out in the 60s, but had been revived in 1990 on the Lifetime network. The original show was filmed in an actual supermarket, but the revival was filmed on a set designed to look like a grocery store. Most of the food in the store was actually real, except for meats and cheeses and other items that had a short shelf life.
That was Jed Henderson. Maggie's about to deliver and there's complications.
Doc Carter gone fishing again?
You know it.
In 2001, Pax produced an original series called Doc about a doctor from Montana who moved to New York, starring singer Billy Ray Cyrus. The show is most famous for being the acting debut of Cyrus's daughter Miley, who appeared in 3 episodes. Doc was one of the highest-rated series on Pax, but was canceled in late 2004. Billy and Miley then moved to the Disney Channel, where they starred in the hugely successful Hannah Montana series. It's interesting to consider that if Pax had been more successful and Doc didn't get canceled, then Hannah Montana may have never happened and Miley Cyrus may have never gone on to be as famous as she is now. The network also produced a few more original shows, such as Hope Island about a minister who moves to a small town to start a church, and Twice in a Lifetime about an angel who guides people into heaven. Almost all of Pax's original programming was geared toward a Christian audience. But the problem was that this audience just wasn't as interested in Pax's programming as the network had hoped. In September 1999, NBC purchased a 32% share in Pax, but later sold the shares back to Bud Paxson after losing faith in the value of the channel. One unique thing about Pax was that initially, there wasn't a national news program on the network. CBS, NBC, and ABC all had a national nightly news show, but Paxson decided to invest in weather vision.
High pressure over the mid-Atlantic down into the deep south, watching an area of low pressure over the southern Gulf, crossing Cuba and bringing some moisture into South Florida.
Weather Vision was a company based out of Mississippi that provided short 5-minute local and national weather forecasts. They are actually still in business today. Most affiliates were not happy with this, and by 2000, many Pax stations signed agreements with other networks to air their news programs on tape delay. A few stations even produced their own local news shows.
You're watching Pax TV. Share the wonder.
By the early 2000s, Pax was suffering. They had low viewership and were running low on money. Paxson decided to sell airtime to companies wishing to sell products similar to how the Home Shopping Network had worked. At first, these infomercials would only air in the mornings, but by 2005, these paid programs were airing almost all day. In fact, most Pax stations didn't start showing actual TV shows until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. By this time, Pax was in financial trouble and canceled all of its original programming. Bud Paxson started to realize that a network that only showed family-friendly shows with a Christian theme just couldn't survive in today's world. So he decided to rebrand the channel.
The renovation has begun. Introducing Independent Television.
On June 25, 2005, Pax changed its name to Independent Television and canceled all religious programming and televised church services that had been airing after midnight. These types of programs had aired on Pax since the channel's founding. He also severed ties with Weather Vision and ordered most affiliates to stop showing nightly news programs, although a few did continue to air their own produced shows. Paxson replaced all religious programs with more infomercials, and replaced the news broadcasts with more reruns of classic shows like Green Acres. At this time, infomercials accounted for 18 hours a day of programming for the channel. During this era, Paxson was only able to get one new original series on the network.
Tyler McLean is a good kid, but life in this small town hasn't been easy.
You two! My office now!
It was called Palmetto Point, and it would be the biggest failure of the channel so far. The show was a teen drama, which was really popular at the time, and it was pretty much a mixture of Dawson's Creek and One Tree Hill. The show was even filmed in the southeastern US, just like those two shows. Palmetto Point was designed as a way to show viewers that the channel was changing and no longer focusing on family-friendly shows. It was sponsored by Cheerwine, so all the characters in the show would usually be seen drinking Cheerwine. But after 5 episodes aired, Cheerwine canceled its sponsorship because viewership was so low, and the company producing the show went bankrupt. Several actors have claimed that they never received their last paychecks, and 2 additional episodes of the show were filmed but have never been released. In November 2005, just a few months after Pax changed its name to Independent Television, NBC Universal purchased the network, and Bud Paxson, founder and visionary, was eventually forced to step down. It was later revealed that the channel was estimated to be over $800 million in debt. In February of the following year, DirecTV announced that it would be removing the channel from its lineup because independent television was showing almost nothing but infomercials. To please DirecTV, the channel stopped airing infomercials on the DirecTV feed and aired older copyright-free public domain shows and films instead. People watching independent television on local TV stations, however, would continue to see the infomercial.
Ion Television, positively entertaining. Go to iontelevision.com to check local listings.
After Paxson left, Pax would change its name again, this time to Ion Television. The channel was immediately sued by Positive Ions, a media company who claimed that the channel stole the name Ion from them. If Ion Television had lost that suit, they would have had to change their name again, and it would have been the 4th time the channel had changed its name in less than 10 years. For the first year under the Ion name, the channel mostly continued as it had under Paxson, but NBC did add children's shows and an evening comedy block that targeted African American audiences, featuring shows like Hanging with Mr. Cooper, The Wayans Brothers, and The Steve Harvey Show. In 2008, the channel relaunched and started adding more crime dramas to its schedule, like Law and Order, Criminal Minds, and NCIS. These shows often aired in marathon blocks, but by 2009, it was announced that the channel was $2.7 billion in debt and filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. ION managed to reach an agreement with its creditors to stay on the air, and over the next 10 years they continued airing reruns and cheap made-for-TV movies until it was purchased by the EW Scripps Company, which made no changes to the channel except for adding women's basketball. Aside from a brief time when WWE aired its lower-tier show Main Event, ION is mostly now known as the Law & Order channel because of how often various seasons and incarnations of the show air each week.
My name is Bud Paxson, and I was an entrepreneur.
After losing control of the network he built, Bud Paxson eventually moved to Montana, where he died in 2015. Outside of his media empire, Paxson was very involved in community organizations. He and his wife helped run the Place of Hope, which is a center dedicated to helping struggling children and families. After Paxson's death, a playground at one of their locations was dedicated in his memory. Although Paxson's vision of a family-friendly TV network would fail, its successor ION continues to survive. Despite relying mostly on syndicated programming, it is somewhat popular with elderly and lower-income viewers who may not have access to satellite or cable, but have an ION affiliate in their area. Let me know in the comments if you remember watching Pax or currently watch the ION channel. And as always, thank you for watching.